You're listening to
and such a short amount of time to do it in.
a Mamamia podcast.
Hi there, and welcome to Cancelled, a podcast from Mamamia about who's in, who's out, and who cares. I'm Claire Stephens. I'm an editor and a writer. I'm Jessie Stephens. I'm an author and a writer and a podcaster. And this is a podcast where you, Claire, tell a bit of a story about a cancellation. I listen. I provide comments and questions, potentially a defence. Mm-hmm. And you just get us through the what, the why, which leads us in to sentencing and charges. Yes. So we have just done a couple of episodes about Pete Evans. Got some interesting feedback. Some people love it. Some people didn't love it as much. That's okay. That's okay. Claire, who are we talking about today? Elizabeth Holmes.
Tonight, Elizabeth Holmes facing the test of her life. The 37-year-old arriving in court, her appearance a far cry from the Steve Jobs-inspired black turtleneck she frequently wore as the founder of Theranos.
Elizabeth Holmes promised the world a medical revolution. At 19, she claimed to have invented a miniaturised machine that, with a single drop of blood, could map our health.
Now, I went back and forth a bit about whether to do this because Elizabeth Holmes, she's not an actress. She's not Eladia. She's not Chrissy. She's not Justin Timberlake.
She's not a famous chef.
She's not a famous chef. And our logo does have it's got Hollywood vibes.
Well, she's Silicon Valley. It's close.
Exactly. I thought geographically close. But I also thought, you know what I thought, Jessie? What? It's my podcast. I can do what I want. And it doesn't get any more cancelled than somebody who was on the cover of Fortune and Forbes and winning business awards, having 800 employees and a business valued at almost $10 billion, and then lost it all and had her business be worth less than zero. So Elizabeth Holmes is also on trial right now for fraud.
A real trial?
A real trial with a real jury and a real court. Well, we're the real court. There's some fake court going on. If found guilty, the maximum sentence is 20 years in prison.
Oh.
That's nothing compared to our sentences. That trial isn't what matters. What matters is this trial, this courtroom, the cancelled courtroom, where we're going to look at her indiscretions and do our own charges and sentences. Jessie, here is the structure of our trial. No, there are no witnesses. There's no scientific evidence. There's no expert opinion. We're not interrogating anyone. There's just us and what we've read on the internet and listened to on podcasts and watched in a very good documentary.
And this is more about our feelings and our sense of whether she's naughty. And we do not sentence people to jail here, except when you sentenced Ilaria to 6 days in a Spanish prison, but that was for cultural reasons. That was not for naughty reasons.
It wasn't a legal thing. It was a vibe thing. You know what I mean? So the structure of this episode is as follows. Part 1, the big lie. In order to set this up, I need to tell you a bit of a once upon a time story about a young woman who refused to quit even when everything, including the laws of physics, were telling her to. Part B, the smaller lies. Then there's the weird shit she seems to have lied about. There's a dog and there's her clothes and there's her voice.
I love a lie for no reason. That's become one of my
favourite lies.
Favourite cancelled themes.
It really is. Part I is what doing now?
Well, she's in a real courtroom.
She's in a real courtroom. So we should probably consider the real court case and actual charges and what's happening there, but very brief. Very brief, because the most of this will be the big lie and the little lies.
People don't even know that they have a basic human right to be able to get access to information about themselves and their own bodies that can change their lives.
Elizabeth Ann Holmes. Look, she started as very smart and determined. And she is. Not going to take that away from her. A school friend of hers describes that Elizabeth was on the track team and she was really, really bad. And she'd never give up. So everyone would be finished and they'd have to yell at all the athletes, well, not athletes, all the students, not to go across the track yet because there was one person who was still running.
Hard relate.
And it was Lizzie. And Jessie, I just want to ask, do you remember when we were in primary school, and it was a swimming carnival, and I was just competing in like the 25 metres.
Didn't someone dive in to save you?
Someone dived
They
in
thought
to
you were
save
drowning.
me.
And remember your first cross country when your skirt fell down
Yeah.
because it was too big and then someone had to save you then? Like you got saved in like more of like an emergency setting in every sport you attempted. So this is a hard relate, and what it does is it builds resilience.
It does. So my hard relate to Elizabeth is like, it really foreshadows what was to come, which was, you know, never give up, but sometimes give up.
Yes.
Sometimes quit, okay? But it's helpful to quit.
Quitting is important at times.
Yes. So she went to Stanford. So she studied chemical engineering before dropping out. It's worth noting that at the end of her freshman year, she was working in a lab testing for severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus.
Oh.
That's just a little tidbit. But my question is it a coincidence that COVID then delayed her trial several times? Or did she have something to do with it?
Okay. Are we accusing Elizabeth Holmes of starting COVID?
Yes.
Okay, that's not where in the world it started. There are a lot of problems, a lot of defamation issues the lawyers are going to call us about.
Well, I'm just putting those two things out there, but we can't be throwing accusations.
No.
So while at Stanford, she pitched an idea to one of her professors. This woman is probably my favourite woman in this whole story. Her name's Phyllis Gardner, and she is no bullshit.
Phyllis tells it how it is.
She tells it how it is, and she's just sick of it. She's just sick of these young kids coming up to her with ideas that don't make sense. So Elizabeth came to Phyllis, one of her professors, and she had this idea about simplifying the way blood was drawn and being able to use that blood to administer antibiotics. She had lots of drawings, lots of sketches, lots of arrows.
Great idea.
A great idea. And she was basically saying, hey, professor, I've done not a year of this degree, but it's all wrong and I have a solution. And Phyllis said, and I quote, I don't think your idea is going to work. And she was a bit like, she was 19, she was pretty naive. And Elizabeth went away and then came back and repitched it, and Phyllis was like, dude, no, still not going to work. So Elizabeth did what every great inventor does. She went back and she found somebody else to pitch her idea to.
Okay, fuck the haters.
Yeah, fuck
Phyllis
the haters.
was a hater.
Phyllis was a hater and a detractor. So what Elizabeth did was she went to her advisor and dean at the School of Engineering, Channing Robertson, and he backed her idea. And he became her first board member and introduced her to a whole lot of investors. She had the most ridiculous group of investors, politicians, people who had invested in Apple and Tesla.
It's like I've always said, which is when you have a bad idea, find some investors.
Yeah.
Find some investors to really kind of put some fuel in that fire.
Exactly. And maybe it'll become better.
Yeah. Maybe or
it
maybe
won't.
not.
Maybe it won't. One of the investors was Rupert Murdoch, which I find interesting. So Elizabeth dropped out of Stanford after a year and she was 19. She started Theranos. And Theranos is meant to be, the actual term is meant to be a combination of therapy and diagnosis. I don't like it.
I just don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
Every time I read it, I go Theranos, Theranos. Theranos.
No. But the following year, she'd raised $6 million from investors. And by the end of 2010, so remember they started in 2003, she started the business. End of 2010, she's got more than $92 million in venture capital. She was recognised for forming the most illustrious board in US corporate history over the next 3 years.
I love this for her.
I know, it's a big deal. The basic idea of Theranos was this.
Over the course of the last 11 years, we've made it possible to run comprehensive laboratory tests from a few drops of blood that could be taken from a finger. And we've made it possible to eliminate the tubes and tubes of blood that traditionally have to be drawn from an arm.
Blood tests suck. You rarely get them, they hurt, and they take a lot of blood. They take a silly amount of blood.
I've often thought too much.
Yes.
You don't need all of that. I need that. I need that.
Like, can I get my blood back? Do you know what I mean?
Because they take like 2, and then afterwards I'm like, well, I feel a bit dizzy.
Yeah.
And I feel dizzy because you took too much.
I
So
don't
take
know.
less.
Take less. It's just, it feels like a violation.
Didn't she also hate needles?
Apparently she had a phobia of needles.
Okay.
And a lot of people do have a phobia of needles. So Elizabeth Holmes was like, surely you don't need that much blood. from my less than a year of my course where I wasn't listening because I was approaching professors unsolicited, you don't need that much blood. Turns out you do, but that's okay. She was like, let's create a nano tanner that takes a bit of blood from your finger.
She won me at nano tanner.
Nano tanner.
Yeah.
And what it is, it's this tiny, it looks like a chip. It looks like a little almost mini iPhone.
Like a SIM card.
A SIM card. And you prick a finger and the blood goes in. And the idea was that you put it inside this machine. And the machine is essentially a miniaturized version of the lab where blood tests are usually analysed.
Okay.
Genius.
So I love this vision. However, going to put this out there. You know when you've had too many wines on a Saturday night and everyone has an app idea?
Yeah.
And it's like, I've got an idea for an app. I've got an invention.
Yep.
And you share it and you get so inspired, you get little tears in your eyes because you know it's right. And then you say, I'm going to pitch it on Shark Tank. And everyone goes, they try and ask questions and you're like, I'll get investors. And then you wake up the next morning and you go, not as good as an idea as it felt after the bottle of wine.
Basically, her idea, you put this miniature thing in the machine and it gets analysed. When you put it in the machine, it does thousands of tests and it's super quick. It comes back with all your results. The idea is that if this is more accessible and if we all have more control over our own health, we can get a better picture of our health and detect things really early, like
all right,
cancers.
sounds great, but does it work?
I know, I don't think that's the most important question here.
She would literally, like, no comment.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment is a great idea. Invest. She thought no one should ever have to go through the pain of getting a blood test or the pain of losing someone too soon. That's bloody compelling.
Great tagline.
Media attention increased in 2014 when she appeared on the covers of Fortune and Forbes and the New York Times Style magazine. Forbes recognised Holmes as one of the world's youngest self-made female billionaires, actually the world's youngest self-made billionaire, and ranked her 110 on the Forbes 400. Theranos was valued at $9 billion and had raised more than $400 million in venture capital.
You're going to want your product to work.
You're going to want it to work.
You're going to want it to work.
Some monies. As the business developed, though, Elizabeth kept secrets. She wouldn't tell anyone how it worked. It would turn out later that's because it didn't work. A profile in The New Yorker described Holmes's description of the process as comically vague. Jessie, I'm going to describe this to you. You're a journalist.
Okay.
And you've asked me, Elizabeth,
how does your blood test machine, Theranos, work?
a chemistry is performed so that a chemical reaction occurs and generates a signal from the chemical interaction with the sample, which is translated into a result, which is then reviewed by certified laboratory personnel.
You sound like someone who did not even a year of chemical engineering. That's what you sound like.
She added that thanks to miniaturization and automation, we are able to handle these tiny samples.
You're just using a lot of big words I don't understand. In her defence, I think it's time for me to just put forward a defence of Elizabeth Holmes. If she told people it didn't work, they would take away their money.
I know.
So once people have money, she had to pretend like it worked. That was part of the venturing.
It was. And look, we'll get to it in a little bit, but I think every business has a little bit of this.
Yeah,
a little
you
bit
got
of
to talk up your game.
Yeah, got to talk it up. Does it work? I don't know. For later, for other people to work out. When they were showing people how all this technology worked, so it was the nano tanner, and then it would go into a machine called the Edison. And they called it the Edison because Thomas Edison had this quote about how you've got to have something not work 10,000 times to have it work. So I'm like,
right. So they justified it not working.
Yeah.
Yep, got it.
By the name. When they were showing people how it all worked, they take a sample of their blood from their finger, put it in the Edison, then take them for lunch or for a tour, and someone from the lab would squirrel out of the lab in their lab coat, run up to the room, grab the sample, test it using completely pre-existing laboratory technology, get the results, shove it back in the machine.
Okay. You know what that's like?
What?
I say to you, Claire, this is a self-cleaning table. It cleans itself.
Oh.
Are you impressed?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to take you to the toilet. And while I'm there, my friend, producer Liz, is going to wipe down this table with Ajax and a sponge. When we come back, it's clean. Are you impressed?
$100 billion. There you go.
That's not an invention. It's a distraction.
It is. So over this time, the biggest success the business had was with its partnership with Walgreens, which is the big pharmacy chain in the US. In 2013, they'd launched in-store blood sample collection centres in wellness centres in Walgreens, and they had more than 40 locations. Then in October 2015, a journalist, John Carreyrou, he kind of broke the whole story. He wrote how the Edison device gave inaccurate results and revealed that the company had been using commercially available machines made by other manufacturers for most of its testing. And there were kind of two big whistleblowers. There was a guy called Tyler Schultz who worked there. He happened to be the grandson of Theranos' director and a guy who sat on the board. And he kept being like, Grandpa, I don't want to be rude, but your crazy friend here, she's running a business that doesn't work. And his grandpa was like, shut up, kid, it's amazing. And he was like, no. And then there was another young woman called Erica Chung, and she worked in quality control. And the more she saw, she was like, okay, this isn't a question of like sometimes it doesn't work, like sometimes we've got a machine's dodgy, whatever. Like this technology is totally broken. She said, like, flip a coin, that's the likelihood you're going to get a test result back that somewhat symbolises what is actually in your blood.
Okay. That's really annoying for Elizabeth Holmes because she's trying to be an entrepreneur, which is a word neither of us can say, an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. She's trying to be Steve Jobs. She's trying to be Elon Musk. And now people are saying her product doesn't work. And that's really annoying because that really undermines your status as a billionaire. It really gives me Fire Festival vibes. So I think what's happening, the kind of president of the whole company was a guy called Ramesh Sunny, like he was known as Sunny Balwani. And every time he was the guy who like oversaw all of the processes, everything going on. And Erica went up to him and was like, hey, Sunny, awkward. You know how this is a multi-billion-dollar company, we're in Silicon Valley, it doesn't work. And he got so mad. You would get mad.
Yeah.
You would get mad because that's not what you want to hear.
No. And he was basically like when I say Fire Festival vibes, it's like, if you, like, that sounds like a problem, I need a solution. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're full of problems. Why you bring these problems to me?
Like, bring the solution.
Yeah.
Like, find a way for it to work, lady.
And it's like, well, that's why it hasn't happened before, because I don't think it does work. Then there's this audio from John Carreyrou speaking to lawyers representing Theranos. Basically what happened was John released this story. Theranos is furious. The lawyers come after him. And this lawyer says, it feels like you want us to give you the formula for Coke to convince you it doesn't contain arsenic.
Doesn't Coke have ingredients on the can?
Yeah.
Okay.
I checked because when I read this, I had a can of Coke.
Okay.
And I read it. It doesn't say step-by-step directions of how to make it.
But you got to know what's in it.
You got to know what's in it.
And that it's drinkable.
And that it doesn't contain arsenic.
I think what's happened here is that she girl bossed too hard.
She did.
She girl bossed too hard. And for that, I blame the culture. Mm-hmm. I blame the culture broadly because she speaks like she follows a few inspirational business owners' accounts on Insta and she just recites their quotes.
This is what happens when you work to change things, and first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
Oh.
But when they called you crazy, you were. And you needed to stop then. Ask yourself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? And then go for it. She should have been afraid. She should have had more fear to ask people for their money when she didn't have a product yet.
Yeah.
You know when you just want to announce something?
Yeah.
You just want to be like, oh, I've written a book. It's like, did you? No. I just wanted a few likes. She just wanted to announce things and get the attention before she did the thing. It's like she went to a weekend. You know those weekends that are like entrepreneurial women and they give you like a monogrammed diary and like a black handbag? Mm-hmm. Like she was really into being a girl boss, but she didn't have any. She didn't have a thing.
Not yet.
Not yet.
She thought it would come.
Yes, and it didn't.
afterwards, so basically all of this stuff comes out and it's just the first nail in the coffin, basically. And the company are like, no, we're successful. Doctors are happy. Patients are happy. But no one was happy. The FDA was so worried that they actually banned the use of the nanotanner. Okay. Means that Theranos isn't really going to work. So they put an end to all of that. Then the CMS, which is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, conducted a surprise inspection of the lab. That's never going to be good. And they found the testing so inaccurate it posed a threat to patients' safety, likely to cause serious injury, harm, or death.
Okay.
That's not good. They removed the license, the lab's license. And so, look, at the end of the day, what this meant in practical terms was that people were getting inaccurate blood test results from Walgreens. So people were going to the pharmacy, getting a blood test, getting a result back and being like, what the hell? So there was
not ideal.
One woman who was told she had a miscarriage. She didn't. Her baby was healthy. She had actually had previous miscarriages. So that was really, really lovely for her. And then there was another who was told she had cancer. She had been a previous cancer patient and then her levels came back and they said, looks like you've got cancer. But I guess the scarier thing is that people would have made health decisions based on that inaccurate information, started taking cholesterol medication, started making all sorts of calls from these blood tests that were totally wrong. So in 2016, Elizabeth Holmes was banned from owning, operating or directing a blood testing service for a period of 2 years.
Yeah, look, I think putting a pause on Elizabeth Holmes inventing anything is wise.
Yes, I think.
And maybe do some working
quietly.
On the project.
Yes.
On the project to try and make something that is actually functional.
Maybe ask some questions.
Yeah.
Of people who know things. But it wasn't until 2018 that it was formally dissolved. And look, that's the end of part one. So that's the big lie. The big lie, to summarise, is this. My company's Theranos. We test people's blood in this very exciting new way, totally new technology, going to change the world. The lie is it was just using the existing technology and lying about it.
Yeah, the lie is I created a new technology to make blood tests, but that technology doesn't work. It's just a SIM card from a phone. And in fact, I just go and do a blood test at the doctor while you're eating lunch.
Exactly.
Which is a big lie.
It is a big lie.
I'd like to put a defence on the table before we move on to part B.
Yep.
When I was a kid, I also made a business mistake.
Okay.
And we know that personal experience comes into the courtroom.
Oh, of course.
What I did was I was given a box of Freddo Frogs
Oh, no.
to sell for netball fundraising.
Yep.
I thought they were $2 each. Why? I did. I thought they were $2 each. So I went around to my neighbours and I said, this is a $2 Freddo. And I sold half of the box. And then I read the envelope, yellow envelope that came with it, and it said, these are only meant to be $1 each. And I went, oh, no. I have two choices. I give the money back to my investors, which is $1 of every $2 they gave me, or
You couldn't possibly track them. They're all over the street.
Exactly. So when I was trying to make that decision, what did I do?
I
ate the rest of the box.
Yeah.
And by the time I had come to a decision, which is let's do the honest thing, all the chocolate was gone. Because I'd sold half of it for double the price. I'd eaten the other half. So I also made a business mistake like Elizabeth Holmes. Did I do the moral thing? No, I ate the chocolate. I feel like that's what she did with the money.
Okay, well, we'll get to your sentences and charges later. God. Part B.
Yep.
The small lies. We're going to just run through these really quick. 1. Dressing like Steve Jobs is not a lie, but there is a lie that's part of it. So Elizabeth deliberately copied his style. She dressed in black turtlenecks to be like, this is so that I don't have to make any decisions about what I wear because all my mental energy has to go towards my product that doesn't work.
Very Barack Obama.
And she said that her mum dressed her in black turtlenecks from when she was 7. But there is an employee who says she dressed totally normally, and then they had a conversation about how Steve Jobs wore black turtlenecks, and then she started wearing black turtlenecks in 2007.
Are you saying that the woman who lied her way to the youngest female billionaire in the world also lied about why she wears black skivvies?
Correct.
Interesting.
Very important.
I would also like to put on the record, though, that can you hear that sound? It is the sound of suffragettes cheering. Because this is a woman who decided that feminism means I can lie too.
I can fake my way to money.
I can fake my way to money. If a man can, a woman can too. And for that, I applaud her.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's like we want women to fake it till they make it. Not like this.
Not like this.
Not like
That's not what they meant. But what did suffragettes fight for? A woman to fake being a billionaire in the 2000s.
That's what they
wanted.
Speaking of what the suffragettes fought for, Elizabeth intentionally makes her voice deeper. She speaks in a baritone voice. So it's honestly like this. If I were to just be like, hello, Jessie. And you're like, oh, that's not your voice. So we actually have a snippet here of when she accidentally used her real voice once during a podcast.
No, it hasn't. Well, if I use traditional words to describe what we're doing, it's hard because people then associate it with conventional processes for analyzing drugs in development or whatever aspects we may be applying our technology to.
Did you hear that right at the beginning?
Her voice gets significantly lower as she goes. Is that what she's doing?
Like, no, I haven't.
I like this because it's weird. I like it. You know, I like a weird line.
I know, it's a weird lie. So basically, I think what she's thought is, well, men get respected more, so I'm going to dress like Steve Jobs. I'm going to talk a bit like Steve Jobs. I love it. It's a vibe. That's her second lie. Her third lie. This is my personal favourite.
Okay.
Saying her dog Bolto was a wolf.
Right.
It's 2017. She's being investigated by the FBI. There's a lot going on. What does she do?
Tell another lie.
She adopts a dog.
Named Bolter?
Yeah, Bolto.
Bolto.
She flies first class to adopt this 9-week-old Siberian Husky. But before she officially adopted him, she knew she would call him Bolto after the world-famous sled dog that made a dangerous 600-mile journey in 1925, bearing medicine to save an entire village from diphtheria. And she thought that really represented Theranos' journey.
Like, wasn't Theranos sort of in the gutter by now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So she gets Bolto, but she decides, she reads that Siberian Huskies' genomes trace back to an ancient wolf, and so she decides that her puppy is actually a wolf, and she reportedly just told everybody this.
That she owns a wolf?
Yeah. Anybody who asked, oh, what breed? Wolf.
Okay. My dog's a wombat.
My dog is a cow. So there's that. Also, apparently Bolto was really badly behaved at Theranos HQ, and he pooed and peed. And he got hair in the testing machines.
That's because he was walking around being like, this bullshit.
I don't know, wolf. I'm a Siberian Husky.
No, he also knew the technology was bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
He was trying to be a whistleblower.
Yeah, he was. So that's her third lie. Lie number 4. She didn't blink. And look, it's not that it's a lie. It's that I feel like it's an implied lie because it says I don't need to blink. My eyes aren't itchy.
And it's like, no, they are. Let's just blink.
Let's just have a little bit of a blink.
Let's moisten the eyeball.
Yeah. So she has a well-documented habit of making unbroken eye contact with potential investors, employees, journalists, and now the jury in her case. And I just don't think that's fair because if I was on the jury and someone is staring at me and not blinking, I'm like, excuse me, I know we're in court here because there's some scam that I don't really understand. I zoned out, but that chick's not blinking. And she needs to go to jail.
It's upsetting and it's weird.
It's really hurtful. And apparently Steve Jobs did the same thing. And she'd be copying. And it's just embarrassing to copy someone so closely.
I know.
Lie number, I'm going to say 5. She was low-key dating the president of the company, Sunny Balwani. So they met when she was 18 and he was 37. They started dating when she was trying to seed money for Theranos in 2004. And he didn't join Theranos until 2009. But when he did, he just shot straight to the top. He went from coming in to then being chief operating officer and eventually being president. And I can imagine people were like, that's random. This guy, he's got no experience in biomedical engineering or medical technology or anything like that.
But in his defense, he didn't need to because the product wasn't real.
Yeah.
So it didn't really need to be overseen by a real scientist, given, again, it was just a SIM card.
It would have been hard. A real scientist would have found it stressful. Would have found it stressful.
And upsetting.
And
would have been a real downer.
Yeah.
Would have been a real, those people in a meeting who are like,
this isn't practically going to work.
Yeah. Like, no one wants that person in a meeting. This guy would have been a real hype guy because he didn't get it. And he just had Elizabeth, his lover,
Yeah.
saying it's really good. So they
like,
just
I
built
love
the hype.
her.
In a business, you need people to bring the hype
Yeah.
and you need people to bring the technology. The issue here is that no one brought the technology, but there was a lot of hype.
There was so much hype. It's so Fire Festival. It's so good. So he was a .com billionaire. He was one of those people who became billionaires from doing all the technology stuff, but nothing to do with medicine. So he really had no idea. Lie number 6. There was lots of secrecy within the company and kind of externally. So every time they got interviewed, all of that, nobody would give anything away, but to the point where it was like, oh no, this is really odd and strange, and are you just straight up lying? So Elizabeth, like the actual technology, they said it was a state secret, so you couldn't share it. So every time people would be like, how does it work? They're like, we can't say that. It's really protected that you don't know that.
That's what I say when I have an idea that I know is bad.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, so how would that work? And it's like, I can't talk about that yet. I can't tell you because it's
copyrighted.
patented. I don't even know what that means.
Patented.
Patented.
I own it.
Okay.
Why can't you tell me?
I can't. It's the law. Look it up in the book.
That's what she did. Line number million. She said quite a few times that there were contracts with the military.
Sounds legit.
She did it as this throwaway line. She told investors that Theranos devices were used on battlefields in Afghanistan. And basically she was saying, you can't get a blood test when you're on a bloody battlefield. You can't, when you can't get a blood test is when you're on a submarine for the Navy. You can't when
Not
you're
in a trench.
Yeah, or not in a trench, not in the sky when you're on a plane. I don't know, you probably can't get a blood test. So she's like, well, you can use my machine that does, it's like a miniature lab all in this machine that doesn't work. You can use
It's
that.
a great time to have a fake blood test.
It really is. So she's on tape also telling a journalist that there's work going on with the military, but she says she can't say it on the record. And she's right. She couldn't say it on the record because it wasn't true.
I find generally that it's better to have lies off the record because then people can't bring them up.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and when they do, you're like, that was off the record.
yeah.
Off the record, we are the most famous podcast in the world. Ha ha ha.
Off the record, we get 1 million downloads a minute. But you can't print that.
Off the record.
Off the record.
Her final small lie is that then when it got to the point where FBI is investigating there's a lot of acronyms investigating her. There's a lot of court cases.
The CDFL, the RL and the CO,
Yeah.
the FRSZ and
They're all suing her. And she suddenly doesn't know anything about her company, which is such a great lie. So they say, oh, so you put together this pack for Rupert Murdoch when he was going to invest, and in that pack there were lies in the pack. Do you know anything about that pack? I don't know. You said that you made $100 million in this year. You actually only made $100,000. I didn't know anything about the money. You were the CEO, lady. You got to know that.
So did she know how it worked? Like, did anyone ask her how it
No,
worked?
that's the thing. She's just pleaded ignorant. She's like, that was the lab, the person running the lab. That was their job. Not my job. It was your idea. The lab was your idea.
Yeah, true.
You created a broken lab and then wondered why it didn't work. Part I, which is where we are now, where she's at.
In a real courtroom.
She's currently being tried on 12 counts of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud.
You know you've been cancelled when you're facing 20 years in prison. You're cancelled from the world.
You are. You're legally cancelled. You're legally cancelled.
That's all a jail sentence is a legal cancellation. You no longer get the right to exist. You're cancelled from your life for a set period.
You're in prison.
Yes.
She's pleaded not guilty. She's being tried individually, whereas the original deposition, all of that was her and Sonny. But the reason they're being tried separately is because she's come up with a new plan. Just like we're not saying that Elizabeth doesn't have great ideas.
Oh, Lizzie has great ideas. She's just had trouble backing them up.
She's got great ideas. So originally her plan was like, They were blaming the media. They were like, no, the media blew up all this stuff. They said all this weird stuff. And then I think the journalists were like, oh, weird. We actually record everything that you said to us on this tape recorder that I can play right now. And they were like, wrong defense, change direction. So
what you've got to do in Silicon Valley, what do you have to do? Pivot. You've got to pivot. You've got to be agile. And that's what she's learnt to do.
Yeah, really come up with all different kinds of defences. So her defence now is this. She plans to blame Bulwani, who dominated her, to such an extent that she was unable to make her own decisions. She plans to introduce evidence that he verbally disparaged her and withdrew affection if she displeased him, controlled what she ate, how she dressed, how much money she could spend, who she could interact with, and basically that it was coercive control. That's what she's saying. And so she's like, we can't be tried together because that's my abuser.
That's not very funny.
No. But the thing about this is, even if it's true, doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it okay.
There's a lot of lies.
An abusive relationship doesn't excuse all of your behaviour. It's a little bit like if I were to do something very, very naughty at work, very naughty, and I get pulled aside by HR and they say, you can't. And I say, I had a car accident 5 years ago.
It's unrelated.
It's unrelated to the terrible behaviour.
Yeah.
And look, I am also never, ever, ever going to question a woman's account of what happened to her. But Sweetie been telling a lot of lies.
It's hard.
And pretty much everybody says she was the dominant one in that relationship and that they saw it and they saw she was the one calling the shots. Okay. So we'll leave that there. We'll leave that there. But right now, she is living in a very expensive property with her new husband and her baby. And she got pregnant at a very convenient time. So as she was about to appear in court, obviously she invented COVID. COVID slowed the trial down. And then she had to appear in court and she's super pregnant. She's like, you can't send a pregnant woman to jail.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Full of good ideas.
Full of good ideas, our Lizzie. Now, time for charges and sentences. Jessie, what is your first charge?
She girl bossed too hard and forgot to make the product. Okay?
Yes.
She went to her empowering weekend, which was about girl bossing. She got all the trinkets. She got a key ring. She got some inspirational quotes.
She stuck them on her wall.
She stuck them on her wall. She said a few mantras in the mirror. She forgot about the product.
Yeah.
And we've all been there. Again, we love the hype. We don't love the work. No. Hard relate. I understand. So, what's the sentence?
I don't know.
The sentence is that I think she should get a needle because she doesn't like needles. She has a phobia. Just one. A vaccination, say. A blood test. I think she should have to get a needle.
Okay. Just one.
Just one.
Okay.
Because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And she made a lot of people uncomfortable
Okay.
through her lies.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yep.
one needle.
Not in like an eyeball or
No, just in your arm.
Okay.
I got a needle. I got my vaccination recently. It was fine.
All right.
Also, no more inventing.
No. Ban on inventing.
No more ideas, which I think is what they tried to do when they did say, you got to stop and she kept trying.
Yes.
No more inventions, no more announcements, no more creating new things.
No more businesses.
No more businesses.
No. We can't. We got to put an end to the girl bossing.
Exactly. No more girl bossing. Go and get an honest job. What's yours? What's your charge?
All right. I have a few. Firstly, I would like to charge her with putting on a fake voice.
Okay.
My sentence is, she's got to talk in her real voice. You got it. I just want to like slap her a little, like, talk in your real voice.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Holmes.
Okay. Don't talk in your original voice. She's got to talk in her real voice. And
Okay,
she
I
won't
like
like
that.
that.
I like
it's
that.
a walk and talk and lie. Because you can compare what she is when she talks in her real voice versus everything that's on the
You know what
record.
else she has to do?
What?
Blink every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Have a blink, moisten the eyeballs.
She does.
Just a little bit of relaxing. Can I give my second sentence charge? Or did you have more?
I have more.
Okay, just you keep going.
Okay,
then.
I got another one. Charge. Creating a fake business.
Well said.
Well said. Sentence. She has got to get her medical results from Theranos blood testing exclusively.
But it doesn't work.
So, for example, you may have noticed she was pregnant. I want her to I want the blood test to tell her she's not pregnant. And then I want her to be 8 months pregnant and be looking down at her belly and be like, I'm pretty sure that's a foot coming out of my badge. And it's like, you're not pregnant. She's
Blood
like,
test says so.
my test says so I better trust it. Hanging my hat on it.
You want some confusion and chaos.
Yeah.
For Lizzie Holmes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my sentence.
All right, I have another charge.
Go.
It is making billionaires look silly.
Oh.
Like Rupert Murdoch. She made a lot of billionaires look very silly because they invested in a product that didn't exist. So what's the sentence you ask? Respect is my sentence. I really like it. I think she's a feminist icon. I really like it.
She was out to get the white men. The rich white
She got a whole
men.
lot of white men. She was like, give me money for a product that doesn't exist.
Boom.
Welcome.
It'd be good if she like donated it to like women's shelters or something.
No, it's not how feminism works. Feminism is about getting rich off white men's money. And that's what I respect.
Creating confusion. And I'm pretty sure all of them got their money back. But anyway, my next charge.
Yeah.
Marketing too hard.
Yeah. It's related to girl bossing too hard.
It's related to girl bossing, but it's not. Because what she did was she had a thing.
She invested too much in the marketing and not enough in the creating, which is a theme.
So say you look at the whole thing. You look at the nano tanner, the Edison, all of that.
May I say, great marketing strategy.
Yeah.
And she hasn't got enough points. 10 out of 10 marketing.
Oh, the way it's described. A lab in a box.
Follow through / consumer experience. 0.
So I say
0%.
I say the idea's 5% there, the marketing's 100%
Yeah.
there, right? What she's got to do now as her sentence is she's only allowed to speak factually. She can't embellish at all.
Oh, shit. How's she going to get an investor that way?
No generalizations. So you can't be just like putting big sweeping statements on things. I need facts, Lizzie, because you told me the military was using your weird machine and they weren't.
It sounded so good though.
For example, if she's like, oh, I got several people told me my hair looked nice. How many? Was it 2? Because that's not several. I'm going to need...
She has to tell the truth always.
Yeah. Tell the truth always. No embellishment.
Stop exaggerating. That's what she is ultimately, is an exaggerator. We all know one.
Yeah.
She just accidentally exaggerated herself to the youngest female billionaire of all time. And that's, again, the Fredo story. It's a hard relate.
It is.
Claire, do you have any more charges for our friend Lizzie?
I mean, so my other charge is she got our hopes up. Because the hard thing about this is it is genuinely a great idea. And it would be really nice. Like, I want a blood test now because it's bloody interesting. Okay? Just like I've got my Apple Watch, my wearable technology, and it tells me my heart rate, tells me my heart rate variability, tells me my oxygen something, tells me...
Oh, I love a sample. I had to do a stool sample recently. They found some stuff in there. I'll tell you that.
I want my own health information for fun purposes.
Okay.
And she got my hopes up about that I could just like take a quick blood test and then I could just track it over like months and months and months and then I could go into spirals of paranoia. I was excited for that. So my sentence is, I want her to actually build it. Can you actually?
Because it's not possible. That's like me. Like, I think it would be a good idea if there was a pill that cured cancer and you only had to take it once. But I'm not going to go and get investors because I don't have the technology. I just have the idea. But I believe in it very strongly, and the military use it.
According to this guy who worked at Theranos, she just kept saying, like, it needs to fit in this box. It needs to fit in the box this size, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, can we make the box slightly bigger? Because there's a whole lot of physics.
Marketing team says no.
She was basically like, no, I said it was that big, so you got to fit it in that big. But it's like, make the box slightly bigger and make it happen, Lizzie. Be really nice. And then don't make yourself the face of it.
It'd be better for feminism if it did work.
Yeah, it really would.
Look, we want to know your charges and sentencing for Elizabeth Holmes. We don't want to know if you think she's guilty. or if she's going to go to jail.
Go to real jail.
Go to real jail, because that's silly stuff. Right here, we look at the more serious stuff, which is how naughty she's been and how long she should be cancelled. So please let us know. Let us know who you think we should do on Cancelled next. We have a long list, but we're always looking for more. Please follow us at The Twins Thoughts on Instagram. Let us know where you're listening. We love to see it. Thank you so much for joining us. The producer of Cancelled is Rose Kerr, and the head of podcast at Mamamia is Elissa Ratliff.
We'll be back next week, but if that feels too far away and you need another podcast to listen to, check out Mamamia's The Undone. If you've never listened to The Undone, they have this segment called Dating Diary, where each week either hosts Em or Lucy tell a dating story, or they read an anonymous submission from a listener. This is one of those.
I started seeing this super hot guy who lives in a granny flat out the back of his parents' house. We went up for drinks with his friends one night. I got blackout drunk, woke up the next morning and wondered why it felt so wet and warm. I had wet the bed.
Wait, no.
I did what any normal person would do, and I pretended to be asleep until he got up and went to work. I then quickly stripped his bed and realised his washing machine was inside and I could see his parents through the back window of the house. So I took all of his sheets, jumped into my car and drove to the laundromat, drove back to his house and made his bed. This guy has since ghosted me.
The Undone drops every Thursday, so listen and subscribe in your podcast feed. And we will speak to you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.